This episode was proudly sponsored by Neller Insurance Agency and Elise Harney Real Estate. Welcome to this episode of Main Street Moxie. I'm Thorne Christiansdottir.
And I'm Mary O'Neill. Today we welcome Kamal Johnson, who is Hudson, New York's first black mayor, and its youngest elected at the age of 34. Kamal is deeply rooted in the town, having grown up there. As a child, Kamal's family was directly impacted by poverty, addiction, and incarceration.
These experiences inform his work as a community and youth advocate and his vision for a city that is safe and equitable for all. Kamal just began his second term as mayor. His first term coincided with the COVID pandemic and required him to bring on the Moxie to safely move the city forward.
His governing philosophy is one of all hands on deck, and he believes that governance is a collaboration to serve the citizens of Hudson and beyond. For the show notes for this episode with Kamal, visit our website, www.mainstreetmoxie.press.
Mary, I'm so excited to introduce our first sponsor, and that's the Neller Insurance Agency, who insure your entire world.
With 3 offices in Chatham, Copake, and Vallecia, New York, they are here to help you with any of your insurance needs, whether it's home, auto, business, health, farm, or life insurance. Their insurance services reach across multiple states: New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, South Carolina, Florida, New Mexico, and Wyoming.
And they insure our entire world right here. But you know what? They insure this podcast. They insure my house. They insure basically everything, from my health insurance, my jewelry, my car, my kids.
Well, Thorne, since I've known you, they've always been the person that you go to for expert advice in insurance.
They are. If there's a question or if I have another need that pops up, like when we started this podcast, I call Kirk up and I say, Kirk, what do I need to do? And he went through, well, Thorne, you're going to need this and we can do it this way or that way. So he really insure my entire world.
Well, it sounds like my kind of insurance agency.
Mm-hmm.
They are the Neller Insurance Agency, and they are here to insure your world. To learn more, visit them online at www.nellerins.com or call them at 518-392-9311, and you'll always get a human on the other end.
Elise Harney Real Estate is the #1 real estate agency for the tri-state region, providing a comprehensive overview of the entire regional market spanning Litchfield, Dutchess, Columbia, and Berkshire counties.
They proudly serve over 40 unique communities with over 33 years of experience. Whether you're searching for the perfect new home, land to build, a rental property, or a luxury estate, they are the community connection in the tri-state region of Northwest Connecticut, the Hudson Valley of New York, and the Berkshires of Western Massachusetts.
And you know what? They've proudly served us too, because our awesome office space right here on Main Street is thanks to Elise Harney Morris.
Well, my exposure to Elise Harney Real Estate is through their constant sponsorship of community events and nonprofits in the area. Having raised my kids here, they were always willing to lend a hand or support some kind of event at the school or in the community.
They always go above and beyond.
Truly above and beyond. So when it comes to your next real estate adventure, let the Elise Harney Real Estate team help guide you. Visit www.harneyrealestate.com or call 860-435-2200.
Kamal, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
The first question we always ask all of our guests is, how do you define Moxie and your Moxie in effect?
Yeah, I mean, I actually haven't heard that word in a long time. But I would say it's like that it factor. Or,
right.
That spunk or charisma that kind of makes you more unique than the next person, and the next person more unique than the next.
I like that spunk. We haven't heard that one before.
We haven't.
I like that. Well, I think that should lead us right into what made you run for the mayor of Hudson.
Yeah, so I wanted to be mayor since I was in 11th grade.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in English class, and I used to be the class clown, and I used to, get the class to like get riled up about a lot of stuff. And then one day, my English teacher told me, you're like the mayor of the class. Like, everyone knows you, everyone follows behind like everything you do. So as a joke, I wrote a sign. I created a poster that said "Kamal for mayor" and hung it up in her class. And ever since that day, I always thought about like, how I would do in politics. And then I started to see a lot of changes in my community. So I ran for councilman 4 years ago now. And, once I got to that point, I was just like, all right, I think this is, the direction for me.
What was it in particular about the mayoral position that attracted you besides the 11th grade class?
Yeah, so I never really saw myself actually like fulfilling, kind of that early dream. I got into a lot of community work and helping out in the community, and I was seen as a leader a lot. So people would actually like call me like the mayor, like in high school, and after like in like an unofficial manner. And then I started seeing a lot of changes in our youth center in Hudson, where, it was one of the programs that kind of steered my life in a different direction. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that they didn't have, a lot of programs going on. There wasn't a lot of investment. The mm-hmm. building was falling apart. So I would go to the council meetings and I would say, I want to help out. I'm a youth worker, part of the community. I'll do it for free. And they would always tell me, you got to be at the table. You got to be at the table. Oh. And there's a process and all of these excuses. So after coming to a few meetings, I was like, you know what? I got to get to the table. And I ran for councilman in a ward where nobody really gave me a shot. Mm-hmm. It was only 7% minority. And they were like, if he was one block over, he would be a shoo-in to win. And, here I am, this newcomer. So I came in and I won. And then as I was in that seat, I started noticing Hudson going in a direction that a lot of the people who were rooted there and grew up there, like myself, were being left out. So I was like, I think back to 11th grade, I think it might be time to, kind of fulfill that dream.
I think it's important also to put into context for those folks who aren't familiar with Hudson. So you were born there, raised there, went through high school there, and live there. What do you think are the biggest kind of changes that you've seen in your lifetime in Hudson?
Yeah, I came to Hudson when I was, I want to say, 7 or 8 years old, and I've been there ever since. So I went through all the school systems in Hudson, and I've seen, a number of changes throughout the years. And what I really started to see growing up is that the more and more popular Hudson gets, the more scary it is for people who are rooted there. So I started seeing a lot of families that I've worked with, that I've known, that I've grown up with, being pushed out to the outskirts of Hudson due to, high demand in retail, cost of living kind of soaring, gentrification really sweeping through the city, and not really at a pace that people like myself could keep up with.
Right.
So I was really like, I need to be a part of the change that we want to see.
To kind of protect the city as well and its residents?
Yeah, I think Hudson is different from all the other surrounding towns and villages in the fact that like its diversity is the reason why that it's able to be the city that it is. And if we don't have that anymore, we lose basically the soul of our city. And I really wanted to protect that.
I want to go back to your 11th grade self. I've worked in education with younger people, and it's interesting as an adult when your English teacher or teacher sees the potential in you that, or a young person that you might not see in yourself. Did you have like an aha moment when that Spider-Man moment when his uncle says, "With great power comes great responsibility," or was it a more gradual evolution where you felt like I have a duty here because of my capacities, my empathy, whatever it is that attracts people to you as a mayor, unofficially and officially?
Yeah, I think I had a couple of those moments. I had a really rough upbringing. So for me, when I saw teachers or mentors invested in me, like I was like always surprised, like why? So, I'm one of 4 boys. I'm the only one of those boys to not currently be in prison or to go to prison. And my mom dealt with addiction issues growing up. I was a product of a single parent household. So for me, I always like was one turn away from a bad direction. So when people were invested in me and always looking at me towards as a leader, I kind of felt like maybe I was different than the environment that I was being brought up in. And then one day I went to go see my brother, who was in Green Correctional Facility at the time, and I really like wanted him to teach me the streets. And as he was like talking to me about the process and everything like that, and I'm hearing like all of the noises, the loud noises of the prison, and like seeing people not be able to touch their loved ones and guards everywhere, he like said something that kind of gave me like this epiphany moment where he was like, you could be just like me. And like I looked at him and I was like, I started crying for like the first time in like 15 years. I was 15 or 16 at the time, and I was just like, I don't want to be like you. Like I feel like there's something different for me to do. And from that moment, I was failing. I was taken off the graduation list, so I went and really buckled down. And I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna see this through to see what could become of my life, I want to like give it like everything. So from that moment on, I was like super focused on doing something different, and that led me to where I'm at today.
Wow, that is incredible. I have goosebumps.
Yeah,
Really powerful.
totally.
I'm curious to know how much of that you carry into your mayoral position today.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about, the differences that how you lived your life versus how maybe some of the residents of Hudson live now. How do you carry that in your position in sort of an overall capacity?
Yeah, I think, it's prepared me for this job and being able to address some of the issues in the community that other politicians don't talk about. And that's what I was finding out as I was campaigning. When I was bringing up certain things, people were like shocked that I was actually bringing them up, and they didn't have to scream and bang down the door to say, like, we have an addiction issue in our community. We have an issue with people being incarcerated at a high rate and not coming home to any resources. We have issues with our youth not feeling their self-worth. And, I really was planning for all of these things all along. So we can talk taxes and all of that stuff that always is like the talking point. And, I want to address those things as well, but I also want to make sure that the biggest thing you get when you're campaigning, especially in Black and brown communities, is people say, it doesn't matter who's in charge. Like, my life is still going to be in poverty. I'm still going to be facing housing issues. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, whoever's there is just a face. So I wanted my tenure to address the people on the ground. So instead of trickle down economics, I really want to invest in the people that are on the ground so the money can trickle up, and not invest in, corporations and big businesses, and really talk the talk and walk the walk.
Well, you had some pretty big shoes to fill, considering you're following in the first gay mayor, and before him, we had the first female mayor, and you were the first African-American mayor. Did you find extra pressure because of that, or something, a different challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at first I didn't really fully take on the significance of being the first Black mayor. So I really didn't want it to be tokenized. So I wanted to win based on, my plans and who I am. And until after I won, and at my swearing-in ceremony, there was these two Black older women who came up to me, and they were like, we came here from 2 hours away. We've been watching your campaign and everything that's going on, and, we really wanted to support and take a picture. They were like, can we take a picture? I was like, can you take a picture? Like, absolutely. But to see that, like, made me step back and say, like, wow, this is bigger than I thought it would be to so many different people, because to them, they probably never thought they'd see a day where there'd be a young Black man, because I'm also the youngest mayor as well, who would kind of take this seat.
Wow, that's filling some big shoes and creating completely new shoes, if we keep going with that analogy.
So fast forward, you talked in an article that Griffin had written about you, about your legacy. What does that look like for you?
My legacy for me, a lot of people in leadership positions want to leave like a building or something like that, a monument to them. I think my legacy is, I want 10 years from now, 15 years from now, a young kid to say, like, if he did it, I definitely can do it and I can do it better. I want to be able to lay that groundwork, because coming in for me, there was no minority that's ever been in this position that I could go to for advice. Like, there's people in other cities, but not here in Hudson, that know the lay of the land and know the players and like what to expect. So as I was campaigning and going through the process, I was writing the script, on my own. And I didn't really have anyone to say, like, how did you deal with this? Or who should I talk to about this?
But you've also seemed, just again in the article, where you're not afraid to collaborate and you seek out partnerships with Harlem Children's Zone as a model for Greater Hudson Promise, using the Chatham Police Officers' chief experience for how to come at the drug issue, and then the universal basic income work. So you seem to be able to find those resources. Is that difficult for you, or are you just naturally able to ferret out these places and people and organizations?
I think it comes natural, and that's like the Moxie of it, is that I come off as approachable. So I came into this position kind of saying, my slogan was all hands on deck, AHOD. And I let it be known, like, this is not a task that I can do alone. So for me to get the results that I want, I need partnerships. And we've done that, police reform packages. We've done that in our wellness center that we're in the process of crafting, that'll include a stabilization center for people dealing with addiction. Done that. I partnered with Andrew Yang and Spark of Hudson, our Universal Basic Income Initiative, given grants to minority, veteran, and women's businesses with the Galvin Foundation. So I looked across the board on partnerships, and I knew like that was the only way I'd be successful, especially in the first term.
Right.
So you're still, halfway through your first term now?
This is the last month.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a 2-year.
Oh, 2 year. I was thinking 4-year
gig. Yeah, so I'm lucky enough to be moving on to a new tenure. So I'll be here for 2 more years.
Congratulations, at least.
Yes, at least.
What have been some of your challenges in the first 2 years and things that you've had to pivot? Obviously, you've had to deal with COVID and some of your initiatives going forward.
I would say COVID has been number one. Yeah. I had a whole layout of what I wanted to do, and
surprise COVID.
Yeah. and the crazy part is, like, I felt like I was hitting my stride around February. Like, I was a month in. February of 2020, I was a month in, and then next thing you know, there's this this virus that is sweeping our world that has never been seen before, and here I am 6 weeks into my tenure as the youngest, probably the least experienced mayor, and I'm faced with this now where it's like everything you had planned has to be changed,
right?
And safety becomes more of a priority than it ever has before.
Yeah. And it's certainly probably a challenge for Hudson, considering how social it is. And you're just coming off a winter walk, and it was canceled last year. It was a virtual last year, right?
Yep.
So that's just one example. But what other initiatives are you looking forward to working on now that we kind of not have COVID under control, but we kind of know how to deal with it somewhat? Yeah.
So COVID, it really just changed the way I had to present a lot of stuff. So all of the initiatives that I wanted to get off the ground, I got off the ground still. So one of my things that I campaigned on was to address unemployment and providing jobs to people that are actually good paying jobs. So I wanted to have a job fair and bring it directly into the city. They would have job fairs like at the college and all these places where you needed transportation.
Right.
And there was all these barriers. So I was like, how am I going to do that now that we can't go outside? So, I had 2 virtual job fairs where we had over 100 positions, over 30 employers, and we did it virtually and brought the opportunities right to people's phones, laptops, wherever. And it was super successful. You can interact, through Zoom with employers. I had each employer present. And one of the things I know is always missing when you're looking for a job is like, jobs never list the salary. So until you get to you know, after this long process and you find out like, all right, this isn't for me, you know, it's a complete waste of time for both employer and employee. So I made sure to present, what are you looking for in an employee? What's the salary? What's the benefits? What's all the things that employee would need to know to be interested in this position? And, you know, we hooked a lot of people up with jobs.
That's amazing.
Have you heard from the small business community in Hudson? Because from the outsider's perspective, Hudson's, you know, it's Warren Street, and that's what everybody knows.
Yeah.
And small business, you know, certainly was affected by COVID as well. I'm curious to hear if you had heard from that community at all.
Yeah, definitely. I know there was a lot of mixed reviews as far as like our response with small businesses. You know, there's not a lot of help that we got from the state that could be directly given out to small businesses, but I did manage to partner with some organizations to get grants for minority, veteran, women businesses, and we highlighted a lot of businesses that are not directly on Warren Street. That, you know, Warren Street gets a ton of attention, but there's so much more happening in our city that's off of Warren Street. So I wanted to make sure that those people who are also, you know, in situations that it could be dire, their business going out, you know, due to COVID and financial restraints, that we give them the support that was needed. And then I also used kind of my gaining popularity to really highlight a lot of our Warren Street businesses. So I was able to do TV shows where, you know, we walked inside some of the restaurants and we ate food, and, you know, we walked in some of the stores and kind of seen everything that Hudson kind of offers. And, you know, we got some free press, you know, to a lot of our businesses on Warren Street, and not just on a local level, but a national level as well.
I saw you had Johnny Bananas come visit you.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. You know, for the MTV generation,
Yeah.
everyone knows who Johnny Bananas is. But is that something unique to you as well as Mayor? The fact that you kind of have, you know, younger, hipper, if we can say that, social media reach as well?
Yeah, I think that ended up being like a positive, you know, is the fact that I'm a young black, you know, I'm not your average looking mayor, or, you know, the way I speak, or, you know, the way I act. Like I'm able to be vulnerable. I'm able to have fun. So when these kind of opportunities reach out, like, I'm always interested. And
Right.
we had a blast. Like, you know, he went in a lot of different stores. He has a huge following. So
Huge
you know,
following.
as he's tweeting these things and putting them on his Instagram, like, it's instant promotion. And I
Yeah.
still, you know, get a lot of emails and messages this day from the show we did a year ago of people like, hey, I was inspired. I went to Hudson. I went to all the places that you and Johnny went. Like, did all
Walking
those
tour.
things.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, we saw that because we, you know, sometimes watch MTV and we all know who Johnny is. So we're like, wait a second. He's sitting in Kamal's chair.
Yeah. And he was super down to earth and fun. And, you know, we've done a lot in my first tenure. We also, you know, had the Today Show highlight our city, and, you know, I've been in a number of magazines, including Main Street, which, you know, I was honored to be a part of. And each time I'm, you know, really highlighting things in our city.
Right.
I'm going to compare you to someone.
All right.
We did a episode about Eleanor Roosevelt, and you might not think that would be the obvious comparison, but in 3 ways, you remind me of her. The emphasis on the local, the use of all platforms of media to really spread stories of local worth and uplift the people and connect to politics on a ground level. And there was one more that just went out of my head. Oh, the question that she would ask, what can be done? And I feel that you are a why not person. Is that how you'd characterize the way you conduct yourself? Because it sure seems that way.
No, it's ironic that you said it that way, because I was in one of my early interviews, and when I was campaigning, and somebody said, "Why you?" and I was like, you know, why not me?
There's a slogan.
And I got an email for someone who listened to that interview, and they were like, you know, when you said why not you, that was when I was like, let me learn more. So I always appreciate that line. And, you know, as a history buff, you know, that comparison also means a lot as a history major.
Well, we appreciate that. Thorin has a background in history, and it's important. This area is steeped in history, and well, every area is. But if we can't learn from it, then we're missing out on an opportunity.
What are some of the let me rephrase it. What is your vision for Hudson in the next 2 years, 5, 10 years? If we look at it that way, Hudson has come a long, long way. I mean, I remember 20 years ago when I was getting my driver's license, my mom said, "Oh, you can't go in the city. You guys can go to Greenport, but it's not safe to go downtown Hudson." Since then, it has transformed majorly, and it's a tourist destination. You're dealing with a lot of issues, affordable housing being one. A lot of properties being sold in and around Warren Street, so there's less, for rent for people to live there, and it's the work, play, live situation as well. I mean, you have Etsy there and some other bigger corporations. You have a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
And it's a very
shortage.
diverse grouping of people there. A lot of haves and have-nots. And how do you face that? How do you view that for the future going forward?
I think every initiative, project, law, resolution has to be human-centered. And that's kind of what I based my first term off of. Really hitting the ground running, because I knew there was high hopes for me as I gained a lot of momentum. And I know there was a lot of people who also want to see me fail. So, being able to partner with Spark of Hudson, Humanity Forward, Andrew Yang on our Universal Basic Income initiative. We're the first long-term UBI pilot in the nation. So we have 75 people, which is right now 1% of our population, that are receiving $500 a month over 5 years.
Wow.
So those are some of the things that I want to do that are going to affect people. That's going to help out with rent. That's going to help out with a lot of mental health issues for people that feel like they just are here to work and pay bills and die. And that was really the feeling of a lot of people who were growing up here. They were trying their best to just keep up with the rising costs. We also are addressing housing in a number of different ways. Since I've been mayor, we haven't raised taxes in the past 2 years, so now I've been a part of 2 budgets that we haven't moved taxes a single cent.
Well, that's pretty incredible.
I know that was one of the issues that are affecting our property owners and also affecting renters. On our IDA, we also passed a pilot that's going to bring about 140 new units of housing online in the next 2 years. So every point that kind of emphasized on my platform, I wanted to make sure is getting started in my first term. So the next 2 years is really to see those things unfold completely and make sure that they're the best products for our city. We get our people into new apartments. We get new home ownership opportunities, new grant programs. Right now we're writing a $2 million grant that's going to help with renovations of people's homes to bring them up to code and, really invest in people. And that's going to be my plan from, however amount of years that I'm mayor, that's how I'm always going to tackle things is, be people-centered.
One of the things that we also feel goes side by side with defining Moxie is how you define failure. And how do you view it? How do you navigate it? How do you... I personally, I use it as a way to learn and pivot, so I don't necessarily view it as failure. How do you view it?
I think it's part of the work. So I don't always let it get to me. In this type of work, especially during these times, I don't really get to celebrate the wins or sulk in the failures. Right. Because we're on to the next thing, that day. Right. So if I pass a budget, which, the people who are detractors of me always felt like he's too young. The budget's going to be too big for him. He doesn't have the experience. So if I pass a budget that's great and doesn't raise taxes, there's no hurrah or anything like that. Literally the next newspaper article is like, hey, this is going on. What are you doing to address this? Or so it's on to the next. And, that's it's just constant moving. So we internally celebrate the small wins and don't focus on the failures and keep moving. And I've had so much turmoil and my personal life growing up that the failures of this work don't compare to me. Like it doesn't hit me, because people are always like, you're so even kill, like you're always like calm and you don't let things get to you. And it's because like I've seen like actual failure.
Right.
So this is work, and there's always a way to bounce back from it.
Right.
That's great advice. Yeah.
Your commitment to the community, is that kind of your main driving force as well behind everything? And how has the community reacted to you these past 2 years, and how are they reacting now in your next?
Yeah, I think my commitment to the community has been payback for their commitment to me. So whenever I was a part of programs, and I've been a part of like so many not-for-profits in Hudson, and done so much work in the community and work with so many families, that when I made this decision to go into politics, the people really had my back. So, going against, an incumbent, 2 incumbents in my first campaign as councilman, and then going against an incumbent as mayor, as someone who's green to politics is no like easy task, but we had so much momentum, and I'm so thankful for that it fuels me to make sure that like I do the job the best of my ability. And I know there's a lot of people watching. I know it's a thankless job,
Right.
but I make sure that I'm grounded, and that people know, they see me out here working hard. So whether people feel whatever they feel about me, one thing when I'm done, they'll say like, I really went hard for the city.
Right.
Mary,
Yeah.
you look like you have a question.
Yeah.
You're thinking hard.
He thought it was indigestion. No. How do you stay grounded?
Yeah, so my coworkers and friends always laugh at this, but I take lavender Epsom salt baths.
I should try that.
So I do that twice a week, for about 30 to 40 minutes, and I just relax, like no phone, no anything, not even any music. I just.
And what's your exfoliating routine?
So like that helps, because that's just like the time for me.
Right.
I also go to therapy once a week, which is like kind of like my diary. I get to unload the past week and upload what's to come every week for an hour, and it's like my time where I can really talk about whatever. And I'm big on mental health as well. So I practice what I preach. Like if I want people to really prioritize their mental health as well as people do their physical health, like I live it, I walk it, I talk it, and I do these things, so I understand completely, and that's a big help as well.
You have one of the things I always see was I'm friends with you on Facebook, as any true friendship is on Facebook. You have a beautiful family. I'm curious how your daughter is she looking to be the next mayor after her dad?
Yeah, she's got a mind of her own. Like I don't know where this kid came from. She was like a bonus to the campaign, my oldest daughter, because she's got that Moxie, and she's like been in interviews and on TV, and she did a one-on-one with Elaine Houston, and I'm like, who is this kid? And she's watching kind of everything I do, so it makes the job fun to see like her reaction. Like I remember, I had a speech one time at the waterfront, and when I got off, while I was speaking, I seen her like really like watching, and then when I got off, I was like, how'd I do? And she was like, it was all right. She was like, it wasn't like your best, but like it was good. And like at that moment, like I realized like, okay, she's really paying attention. Like she's like, and I often see when we have to speak at the same time, her trying to outdo me. So I appreciate that. And it makes the job fun, because I can also come home and unload everything that I'm dealing with, and be able to talk to people who get it and understand, and like know how to react. Like if they've seen like I've had a bad day or anything like that, like they know like, all right, let's give them a little space or a little more care and love. And, you know, that goes a long way.
And extra lavender Epsom
Yes.
I just had a curious question. When you were telling us a story before when you were visiting your brother, has the role changed? What did your brothers think of your position and what you've accomplished? Do they view you as a role model? Do they think that they can be like you now too?
Yeah, which is weird because I'm the third born, so I have 2 older and 1 younger, and everyone was actually able to come to my swearing in, which is like rare for family events for myself. And, you know, to hear them say, like, we knew all along, like, you could do it, like, you were gonna win, and, you know, we're proud of you, and we knew, like, there was something different in you, and to see, like, the response has been, like, so humbling. And especially because, like, as I was mentioning my daughter before, somebody had said to her after one of the speeches, like, well, it's in your blood. And, like, that was, like, such an amazing accomplishment for me because, like, when I would get in trouble, you know, at school, they would say, well, of course he's in trouble. Like, you know, it's in his blood. That's, like, you know, who he is. So to hear, like, I've changed that narrative and, like, you know, it's like, oh, of course you're doing good. Like, look at, you know, who your family is. Look at, like, what you've been exposed to and a part of. And, you know, that meant a lot. So, you know, to hear, you know, my older brothers, like, say, like, you know, they look up to me and they're proud, like, it's, you know, it's humbling because it's supposed to be the opposite. You know, you look up to your older siblings.
Well, I think the last question we always ask is what words of Moxie wisdom would you have for our listeners and for your constituents and your neighbors?
I would say bet on yourself. I think that's been the biggest Moxie moment in my professional career. You know, I was, like, at a point where everybody, like, viewed me as the underdog, and I would go on all my interviews and say, like, yeah, you know, I'm the front runner right now. I was like, you know, so, and then one day, like, I bought a shirt that said, said AHOD on it, and, like, I wore it, and I was like, I should make up a bunch of these. And I was like, you know, to my last, like, few $100s, so I was like, I'm gonna bet on myself, and I'm just gonna spend, like, you know, the last money I had on, like, 75 shirts, I think it was, or something like that. And, like, I was like, you know, either at the end of this, people are gonna want them, or I'm gonna have, you know, shirts for the rest of
Merry
the
Christmas,
year.
everyone.
And, you know, as I posted it on social media, all of those shirts, all 75 of them went in probably 2 hours.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, like, bet on yourself. Like,
that's incredible. I think that's a great way to end off. Always bet on yourself. Well, thank you, Kamal. It's been so terrific to learn more about you and share with our listeners.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
So, Thorin, that was an incredible conversation with Kamal.
I had so many goosebumps.
Yeah, the moment where he spoke about things being in his blood in his early years.
That was so moving.
Just to think that you can, in the course of one lifetime, change the trajectory not only of yourself, but of your children and your whole family.
And he did that, and it's so inspirational. When he was talking about it, I was simply in awe. And, like, what he shared about his daughter now, and that, yes, it's in my blood.
Yeah.
That she grows up with, or both of his daughters now are growing up with a whole different meaning than he did. It's just, I was blown away by that.
And I love it that she's his most honest critic.
I love that. You know, as someone who has, you know, kids, especially daughters, I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, what an example. And his collaborative vision of governing Hudson, of bringing in partners, of identifying programs in other places and trying to get funding to try them in Hudson, I thought was really inspirational. He really owns that position.
He does. And, you know, not only the fact that he's the youngest mayor, he's the first black mayor following in the footsteps of the first gay mayor, the first female mayor. He's continuing on with a legacy there. And I think his vision is, you know, really moving and as you said, his collaborative spirit. But I think from what he was saying and just his attitude towards everything, I feel like it's beyond Hudson, though. He's looking at that entire community where he grew up and he's raising his family, and he's part of that community in so many different layers that he understands it on a much deeper level. And I think that is so important for communities like Hudson and beyond. And I think that, it's kind of the fabric of America because it's built on small towns and cities just like Hudson.
And I love that he emphasizes really serving the people that have lived in Hudson over generations, that he doesn't want them left behind as Hudson moves into a new era.
And not forgetting them because there are so many, cities that have been gentrified and all these, the influx of new people. And those folks who have been there for generations often feel forgotten or that they're not catered to. So I think that it's very admirable that he's trying to kind of not fix that, but amend it in a way that, no, this is for everyone here. We're trying to build a community together.
Exactly. And his hashtag all hands on deck, or
I loved it.
AHOD, I think really exemplifies his approach to governance. So I was super impressed with him.
It said so much. I want a t-shirt, even though he's sold out. So come on, next batch, please, can I get a medium?
Exactly.
This episode was proudly sponsored by Neller Insurance Agency and Elise Harney Real Estate.